Thank you, Judith. Coming up next on The Beat Goes On, it's our second special guest, Bernard Reid. Bernard has had a wonderful life as a magician and has travelled the world creating magic. On top of all that, he has written an amazing book on the history of entertainment in New Zealand between 1840 and 1900. We welcome the author of Conjurers, Card Sharks and Con Men, Bernard Reid. Bernard Reid, welcome to The Beat Goes On.
Thank you, Jared.
Wonderful to have you on the show, and you're here because of this marvellous book.
Yeah,
B-O-O-K, book. Not a Kindle, but a book.
Book, yeah.
We've been talking Kindles and books in the last week.
Oh, have
but
you?
Look, let's look at the title. Conjurers, Card Sharps and Con Men. And it's all about entertainment, basically, from 1840 on to the 1900.
Correct.
Wow.
What's interesting about it, Jared, is the fact that when I started to research this, I was looking for anything that had been written about variety theatre in New Zealand because variety theatre was the choice of the masses for 80 years.
It would. No television.
No television,
No
no
radio,
movies, no radio, no
yeah.
recordings. It wasn't the recordings didn't come until 1880s.
So what did they do for entertainment?
Live
Variety.
shows.
Yeah, live shows.
And there was always an audience for drama, opera, ballet, choral recitals and so on. But the choice of masses was, of course, variety theatre. And the variety theatre was preceded by the minstrel shows, which were the entertainment of the day. Then variety came along, and that sort of superseded everything. But when I was looking for material, not a single book had been written about this form of entertainment that for 80 years was the backbone of entertainment in New Zealand.
Mainstay of our culture.
Yeah, the mainstay of our culture.
Yeah. Now, a variety show, when you say variety, that would mean that you would have singers, you would have magicians, you would have...
Line of girls,
jugglers,
dancers,
yeah.
there would always be a chorus of girls, etc.
So a night's entertainment could, say, have 6 or 7 different artists over the night.
Some of these shows ran 3 and 4 hours. They'd have a lot more entertainers than that. And some of them were continuous. In other words, you could come in at 8 o'clock and stay till 11, and when the first act came back on, you left, and others came in. It's just continuous.
Wow, what price? What was the general price?
I'm not joking.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Nothing.
No. We're talking, in those days, if you take the currency of that era and convert it to today, it would be about $2 admission. It was like sixpence, which is like equivalent to $2 today. But there wasn't the fierce competition there is now. I mean, a lot of people don't realise that sports fixtures, which didn't exist in that time except for horse racing, they draw off such an incredible amount of the disposable dollar. And they've drawn it from show business. So when you've got these massive sports fixtures and these exorbitant prices that are charged for sports fixtures, that bleeds the theatre money because there's only so many disposable dollars and so much, what do we call it, disposable income.
But Bernard, first of all, we're going to find out why you wanted to spend 20 valuable years researching, looking into this, gathering photographs, and putting together this book. Why did you want to do it, Bernard?
It was a passion because it hadn't been done before, and the reason I did is I believed that it had to be documented. And as it has not been done before, I wanted to make sure it was done. And fortunately for me, I've received accolades in both the US and the UK for the book. It's sold very, very well overseas.
Now, your interest also came from the fact that you've spent a lifetime being a professional magician. What a life, eh? I bet you've got some stories to tell.
Oh, have I? Not ones I could repeat on television. No, I left New Zealand in 1968.
You're born in New Zealand?
Born and raised in Auckland.
Yeah.
I left New Zealand in 1968 and I returned a month before the World Cup.
Wow.
So that was 2011.
So you spent all your working life overseas as a magician?
Most of it I lived in the United States.
Yeah.
I lived 21 years in Las Vegas, and then I was in Sarasota, Florida. Wow. When I first went to the States, I lived in Midtown Manhattan, New York, so I've seen every aspect of the US.
We were hoping tonight on The Beat Goes On that you might be able to make a Boeing 747 disappear.
Yeah.
Any chance of that?
No, highly unlikely, Jared.
What's the biggest thing you've made disappear?
My paycheck.
That's really genuinely funny.
Yeah.
The biggest thing you've made in your illusions.
It would all be humans.
Yeah. Human beings. You're making. Now look, Magic, of course, it's up and down as the years go by. It has its time in the sun, and then it has its sunset and that. But how's magic today?
Fortunately, it's fabulous, and there's some proponents who are outstanding. I mean, absolutely brilliant, and they've brought magic to the fore again. I'm very pleased to say, they say the golden age of magic was from like the mid-19th century to the 1950s, which means it ran for about 80, 90 years, because it ran parallel with vaudeville, or burlesque, if you want to call it burlesque. It ran parallel with vaudeville and was the second most popular form of entertainment right through the 19th century. Then it went into a decline. Then it came back again with David Copperfield.
Yes.
And he really put it on the map big time. And then there was, all of a sudden, in Las Vegas, everywhere had an illusion show. There was Siegfried and Roy, there was Dan Warwick, there was so many of them doing illusion shows, Lance Burton and so on. And then, I won't say it faded completely, but it went into a decline again, and it's come back recently. And I was very, very pleased to see that with the Comedy Festival here in Auckland, there are actually 3 magic acts, which is a wonderful thing, because I went and saw one the other night, and they were outstanding.
Now, I have not taken that big a notice of magic, but I was mesmerised and I was grabbed by a young man called Dynamo. Now, you rolled your eyes. You don't think he's a great proponent of magic?
I think Dynamo's done more damage for magic than anyone else.
Well, he's got me. He's hooked me into magic.
Yes, but I'll explain something to you, and I'm so pleased that I have a chance to get this point across on television. Dynamo is not the show. The show is the very, very clever edits. What he is doing is blatantly impossible. I can bring you 20 magicians and say, how is this trick done? And they say it can't be done. I mean, he throws the ring over the side of a boat and the fish comes up with the ring. Now, come on. Right? Apart from the fact that it's all setups, it's very, very clever editing. And I can tell you where every edit is in that show.
Right. Here's one that he's able to do, which I can't see how they could, nothing to do with editing. He writes on a piece of paper the results of the World Cup soccer. He puts it into a sealed thing and he gives it to a person who then locks it up for 3 weeks. Then after the end of the World Cup, he appears on this radio show and he has not touched that piece of paper since.
Ostensibly, yes.
Ostensibly. And they unwrap it and he has got it dead on who won the World Cup. That can't be done with editing, can it?
Yes, it can. And I'll tell you why. Did you see another performer on TV recently called Catherine Mills?
No, I didn't.
Called Catherine Mills Mind Games. She did a very, very similar thing in the London Eye, where she was mentally reading what someone else had written on another car of the eye as the two were turning. And she got this artist to draw his impressions of London, and then after he'd finished, she opened this box which had been mailed to a journalist, and he brought the box along, untouched by her for 2 weeks preceding. And this guy's sketch, when they opened the box,
it was exactly the same.
No, there were 2 T-shirts with the sketch printed across the front of the T-shirts, identical. It's exactly the same trick.
But she didn't do that with editing, though, did she?
Of course.
But no, they wouldn't be allowed. The BBC wouldn't allow them to do that trick.
Oh, come on.
No, they wouldn't. They would say that was their reputation's at stake. They wouldn't allow that to happen.
No, it's not their reputation at stake at all. This is purely entertainment. It's put out as entertainment. There's so much they do that is just not feasibly possible, and it's all done with edits.
Well, if I was the head of the BBC and I heard that they were doing that type of scam, I would come down on them heavily.
Well, it's not really a scam.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it a scam.
Never mind. We'll move on from Dynamo.
We'll talk about con men.
But tell me one nice thing about Dynamo, because he's really impressed me.
Well, he has charisma. There's no doubt about that. Otherwise, he would not be on TV. He certainly has charisma. That's and excellent charisma. Presentation, performance-wise, excellent. But as far as what he does, that's a whole different ballgame. But
if you were a young man today, Bernard, you'd be doing the same, would you, as Dynamo?
Of course, and I'll be honest. Of course.
Good idea.
There's an old saying: you follow the money.
Thank you, Bernard, for that. So, but back to the book.
Yes.
Did you realise it would be a 20-year task? Or
No.
So you just started and said, "Look, I'm going to start researching everything to do with magic before the year 1900." and you started. So tell me the journey.
Well, the journey was, back in that era, there was no computers.
No computer.
So therefore, everything was done by microfilm and microfiche, and that's a long process.
Yeah.
Because you've got to find out where the material is first.
And where is it? Is it in libraries?
Turnbull Library is the main. Well, the Turnbull and the Hocking Library are the two that I resourced most of the material from. And now, of course, with the computers, it's not half as difficult because you have a brilliant, an absolutely spectacular site run by the National Library, which is the Turnbull Library, which is called Papers Past. And there are literally millions and millions of newspaper pages accessible. So now it's a much easier task. But I never realized, although I had been told, that research never finishes. The more you research, the more you realize how much more you got to learn.
And so when did you stop? I mean, it's a thick book, so you must have said, I've got to stop.
Well, I stopped in 2012 because I got up to 1900, but if you notice, the publication date is actually 2015. Because then I had to go through and do the indexes, and of course it had to be professionally edited, and there are other, not only then I had to put things in chronological order as far as the tours were concerned, and so there was a lot of work. Once the actual text was finished, there was still a lot of work to finish the whole thing, and as you see inside, after each decade, there's a series of very comprehensive notes of my sources.
Well, you've left a wonderful gift to the nation, haven't you?
Well, that was a gift to the
nation.
Yeah. One thing I'm very proud of, and I'm very happy about it, Jared, is the fact that I got a review in New Zealand Legacy. I don't know if you're familiar with the magazine, but it's the magazine of the Historical Societies of New Zealand. And they gave it an absolute rave review, and that meant a lot to me because that's in New Zealand and it's the Historical Societies.
That's your peers saying, well done.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, Bernard, one of the things that we do on the show is we always give away a couple of books. And now this is a particular gift because there's only ever 200 made.
200 hardbound, yes.
Yes, of these books, hardbound. And this book, in fact, is 118.
That's right.
You can see that. So there's only 200 ever printed, and we're going to so far.
Yeah.
There'll be more.
Or first edition, yes.
Yeah, it's first edition. So our winners will be getting a first edition, and it'll be obviously signed by you.
It is signed in the front.
Signed by you.
Yes.
Now that is a marvellous gift.
Thank you.
So what do they normally retail for?
Well, overseas they sell for 125 US.
125 US.
Yeah, but which of course includes shipping. But in New Zealand, it's 100 New Zealand dollars.
Wow.
Shipping included.
Thank you, Bernard. That's a wonderful gift to our viewers.
Well, I have two of them for you. So.
Yes, two of them. So I think the question could be, what era was the magic written about? Well, it's magic in the 19th century, wasn't
it?
So there you are, viewers. Email jared@thebeatgoeson.co.nz.
Right.
And in the subject line, magic in the 19th century.
There you go.
Well, there we go. And what we get lots of entries, and we'll pick two, and they'll receive a book.
Very good.
So you must be very proud. I think this is a stunning book. So
I am, and I'm glad it's been done because now this will probably mean a lot more in 100 years' time than it does today.
Exactly. Yeah. So Bernard, before you go, what is Bernard Reid doing today? Is still doing magic?
Well, I have some serious medical problems at the moment, so I'm not performing. So I virtually retired from performing last December. The very last shows I did was I did a cruise, a Christmas New Year cruise, and that was it.
Yeah.
And then I came back, and I've had medical problems since, so I can't perform at the moment.
You can't perform. Do you miss it?
And highly oh, of course.
Yes, you do.
Show business is not something you ever give up. You know, you've.
But if you're a magician,
to it.
Bernard, if you're a magician, you should be able to click your fingers and you're young again. You haven't done that
Wishful
trick yet.
thinking.
Fix the problems, medical, and will you go back to it, or you're quite content?
No, I'm 73 now, so I think my performing days are really over. Because even if the problems are fixed, I don't have the speed on stage I used to have, which I need. It's integral to the show, and I don't have the fluidity I used to have. So therefore, I think I'm trying to accept the fact that I'm retired. It's difficult, but I'm trying.
Now, before you go, how do you make a person disappear? Come on, Bernard, tell us the...
Very carefully.
Very carefully. So we'll never know the answer, will we?
Never know that. Well, there's so many ways, Jared. There's hundreds of ways.
To make a person disappear.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. We read about it in the newspapers every day. Anyway, Bernard, I'm going to say big thanks for coming in today.
Thank you very much indeed, Jared.
I think you've done a wonderful service for the New Zealand public, providing 20 years of hard labour to put this book together.
Certainly was.
Wonderful.
With performances in the meantime.
Okay, thanks, Bernard.
Thank you.